Hello, role-playing people, and in this episode we're going to talk about the Dread Kings for Demon the Fallen, also known as the Earthbound. Let me start by saying, if you've been keeping up with the faction episodes, you know I emphasized their flaws, opting for a view from the outside, presenting them in the light of antagonists. The factions are far from being good, but they are composed of individual fallen who, upon their return to the world, become partly human. Depending on the host's memories, these newly arrived demons might embrace virtues such as kindness, compassion, care, altruistic giving, the desire to protect and heal humanity and the world. Although the Raveners will fervently deny this, the factions and the world in themselves are not hopeless. They can have and manifest redeeming qualities and work towards doing good. But not the Earthbound. Today we are going over who they are and what they do using the book with the same title, Earthbound, which, quite frankly, is a difficult and unpleasant read in the style of the Bali Clan book or Infernalism: The Path of Screams, because of the nature of these antagonists who are the most evil, despicable, and unclean things in the world of Demon the Fallen. The Dread Kings are absolutely irredeemable. Their motivations are beyond our comprehension, alien and twisted by Torment, and as such we can only guess what they want from the way they manifest their urges and the way their cults worship them. They show no factional allegiance, nor house allegiance for that matter, not that anyone could recognize their house by their apocalyptic form. You see, so corrupted are the Earthbound by their torment, so many other celestials have they devoured, that their apocalyptic forms are sanity-shattering collections of grotesqueries and features that are the antithesis of everything good or divine. They are hideous and disgusting beyond belief. It's a good thing they can only manifest their visages at great cost. And these forms are not anthropomorphic either, unlike the forms of the fallen, since they reside not in human flesh, but in either a location or some kind of mobile reliquary that is more or less tailored to their nature. Effectively, they reside in objects, devoid of the warmth of being, devoid of sensory organs, devoid of bodily functions or pleasures, and any memories or sensations that might alleviate the agony and torment they've gained in the pit. The Earthbound know exactly what they are and what happened to them, their memory is intact. But the fact that they cannot feel anything in their lifeless vessels led to their virtues being replaced by urges. Urges of flesh, urges of thought, and urges of emotion, which they indulge without any concern for others. The Dread Kings believe themselves to be the rightful rulers of creation, each and every one of them, and as such there is nothing more important than them, nothing above, and nothing beyond. Their appetites are so great that they are incapable of receiving faith from the individual human, and instead receive faith from their cults, from masses of worshippers who engage in extended and elaborate rituals for their masters. How they actually want to be worshipped cannot be done by human beings, so the rituals are effectively human translations and variations of ideal rituals that resonate with the demon's nature. Unlike the minor fallen, which store faith in their own bodies and the temporary rating cannot exceed their permanent rating, the Dread Kings can store vast amounts of temporary faith in their reliquaries, though because of the impersonal connection with individual worshippers, surprisingly they cannot ravage their cults for faith. And since we're on this topic, Earthbound make use of any tool at their disposal in manipulating their cult into servitude, including torture or indoctrination. A few factions of the Fallen would be quite interested to know exactly how these beings can break a person's will and sanity and somehow still benefit from their faith, which doesn't happen under normal circumstances. They certainly need worship, and without it, despite their reserves of faith stored in their reliquaries, The Earthbound go into a form of torpor, a prolonged and deep slumber during which they are barely conscious, but they can always be reawakened by certain events, like the fact that the abyss is shattering slowly and minor demons are coming out. Why can't these Dread Kings be redeemed, though? Surely, if they experience coming into human flesh and feeling human emotions and memories, they can throw off some of their torment, yes? Nope. Since their very first arrival into this world, bound to this plane of existence through unliving things, their urges, powers, and torment have degenerated and increased enormously, to the point that possessing a human host immediately destroys the soul within. The body can function for 2 days at most, before suffering the same fate, going out in a spectacular fashion and ejecting the Earthbound back into its reliquary. The lores these entities use also reflect their grotesquerie and evil, as they can only use high torment abilities, which slowly but inevitably destroy their cults, any human unfortunate enough to catch the Earthbound's eye, and the world overall. They couldn't do good even if they tried, not that they'd be tempted to do so, since their natures have also warped into pure evil, with examples such as enslaver, sadist, destroyer, vivisectionist, and tyrant. So what do these alien horrors do when they need a more subtle approach? Well, they work through their human cults and their minor demon slaves. Some of them have had enough time on this earth to collect valuable information regarding other fallen, or maybe they just remember such information since their memories are untainted by human memories. Regardless of how they came across such valuables, they often have codexes of names they can use in summoning and commanding other fallen. And once you are commanded by your true name, you are powerless to resist the order given. Unlike the Earthbound, minor demons can use low torment lores, and through them, the Earthbound can trick others into thinking they can also do good, perform benevolent miracles, when in fact they cannot. They are enslaving and slowly destroying other celestials. Their cults can also be quite subtle and often appear benevolent at first, till they reveal their true face, and that is when they use the techniques I've already mentioned, torture and indoctrination. And while we're on this topic again, so unclean are the Dread Kings that even their thralls gain physical and behavioral deformities, such as malformed faces growing out of their belly, or some compulsion to eat human flesh. Despite the fact that their lores are limited in use by their torment, the Earthbound are masters of their reality-shaping powers, so much so that they've created and discovered new lores that only they can use, in case you thought these entities aren't disturbing enough. The lore of chaos allows a Dread King to manipulate hidden chaotic realms that came into existence after the fall. Most of the Fallen have no idea such realms even exist, but the Earthbound have had time to study and control these places and their energies. Use of this lore effectively breaks down reality as we know it. Laws of reality stop working, which can result in seemingly random, horrifying effects like water turning into blood, rains of frogs, things falling up instead of down, and so on, which at first affect the sanity of those around, but further mastery of this lore makes such manifestations physically harmful to everyone around the Earthbound, and I'll give you the example in the book. A cloud or a swarm of fanged mouths appears out of nowhere and just begins chewing on everyone. Can't this get any worse? Well, the lore of Contamination allows the Dread Kings to corrupt places, things, and living beings, with their own sick energies, which enable them to focus their consciousness through these corrupt things, effectively being in many places at once, for starters. As their corruption extends, they learn a power that is literally called Taint the Land, and for those listeners who have also been checking out the Kupala lore hunt, this should ring a few bells. And finally, this lore culminates with their ability to create an unliving, monstrous, extremely resilient and powerful mobile vessel that they can use as a host, and which lasts much longer than possessing a mortal. So that whole thing where they are bound into the earth and their reliquary and they can't really move around, yeah, they found a way around such restraints. Finally, the lore of violation allows the Dread Kings to forcefully work their way inside a mortal's mind from a distance. This is their own tormented version of the lore of humanity and allows the sending of night terrors, the painful theft of thoughts and memories, the sending of horrible panic-inducing visions during waking hours, the direct command and enslavement of the mortal's mind, and lastly, devouring a human soul. Luckily, the Fallen are immune to this lore because they are immune to mind control and supernatural fear. Everyone else, not lucky one bit. What happens though when a reliquary is destroyed? If the reliquary is somehow destroyed, and believe me, this is no common feat, the Earthbound can always find another improvised reliquary to inhabit. Should they miraculously be sent to the pit, their mortal cults are always ready to pull them back out. The only way to truly destroy one of these horrors forever is to find their true name and command them into inexistence, or devour their soul, which, as tainted as it is, might just turn you into one of them. They are, by far, the greatest, most subtle, most powerful enemy of the Fallen, especially the 5 Archdukes. If they are so powerful, how come they haven't destroyed the world already? Well, despite being absolute monsters, they need to be calculated, even in their maddened, destructive torment. They are incapable of working together, since each and every one of them believes they are the ruler of all creation, so they've made enemies out of everyone, including the other Earthbound. They are not a faction. The world isn't just up for grabs, everyone is someone else's rival in the battle for worship and power. This and the fact that during certain periods in history they lost so much influence with the mortals that they effectively had to hold on to whatever remained of their faith and sink into slumber. But they are starting to reawaken, and some have been awake for centuries now. The fact that only their innermost servants actually get to see these entities and interact with them directly means they are very well hidden. Indeed, most mortals who make up their cults don't even know who or what their master really is. They probably wouldn't survive the sight if they knew. Very much like some vampires, the Earthbound operate in secrecy, for now. They are capable of great deceit as well as great destruction, unbound by any law, human or divine, except the law which they make themselves for their own amusement. Because of this, they make some of the most horrifying and memorable monsters. They can play entire courts into doing their bidding and pray that your celestial name doesn't become of interest to them, because you can find yourself invoked and commanded by one of the Dread Kings from the other side of the globe. Nowhere is safe from their influence. To conclude, despite the fact that Demon calls itself a storytelling game of infernal glory, it is because of these antagonists and their methods that I believe this is the scariest game in the World of Darkness line. Nothing quite compares to the sheer, raw terror of having one of the Earthbound just throw or vomit 6 syllables of your true name in your face during a supposed negotiation, and become fully aware that your protagonist's death is the least painful thing that can happen to them. Thank you very much for listening. Take care, have fun, and don't forget to play.